Welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to continue our series on why the restored gospel using the King James Version, and we're going to talk about the church.
Proclaim the glory of the Lord.
I think for many of us, especially for myself, when I think of the word church, I typically think of like a building, like a sanctuary or organization, an institution, quorums, things like that. But when we actually look at Scripture, we see that the word or the meaning behind church is something that is a lot more deep. In Ephesians chapter 2, verses 19 through 22, Paul is writing and he's talking to the people about being a spiritual building that is founded upon the cornerstone, which is Jesus Christ, as well as the testimony of the prophets. And even when Jesus is talking to Peter in Matthew 16, that famous part of Scripture that so many people like to quote today, where Jesus asked them, who do other people say that I am? And, they respond by saying, some say you're John the Baptist or another prophet. And he says, okay, that's nice. But now who do you say that I am? And Peter tells Jesus, you are the Son of God. You are the Christ. You are the Anointed One. And Jesus tells Peter that he didn't know that because someone told it to him. He only knew it because his Father in heaven had revealed this truth. And he says, on this rock, the rock of revelation, will I build my church. And this really helps us to understand what the church is. Because it's not the building. It's not the structure. It's a people who are believers in Jesus Christ and have taken the gospel of Christ as their firm foundation. In fact, when you look at the word church and you look at it in the Greek, one of the meanings of it is simply an invitation or a call for people to gather together in one place. And that is what the church is called to do. It has two distinct missions. The first is to gather saints together, those who have the same belief, who've made the same covenant, that they can provoke one another to good works, that they can bear one another's burdens. And this is another way of what we might call Zion, which we'll talk about more in other episodes. But if you want to know a little bit more about that right now, you can check out our series on Zion. Number two is the Great Commission, or another way that it might be phrased is the great and marvelous work. And this is something that has really been resonating with me of late, of how important it is that we share the message of Jesus Christ, that other people might have this understanding and this knowledge. And so the church is a means for this end. The end is to share the gospel of the kingdom in all the world for a witness. And then the end shall come, as Jesus says in Matthew 24. Sometimes we make the church the end. And when we do that, we are kind of going off the path. We're getting out of bounds. And we start to have problems and difficulties because that wasn't how God designed it. And I love this testimony. A fellow minister of mine has shared this. He was in Kenya in 2021, and he spent a month there. And one of the priesthood in Kenya asked him a question. He said, what is the great and marvelous work? And usually for us at our tradition, we typically think of the great and marvelous work as, the Book of Mormon, or the restoring of the priesthood, or the restoring of the church, all these things. And those things are important, but they're not the end. They're just tools. They're vehicles to get us to the end. And so after this priesthood member in Kenya asked my brother this question, he responded in this way. He said it's to bring all of God's children home. That is what God desires. He wants to gather everyone to him who wants to come, who will choose to do so. And how can they choose to do so if they haven't heard? And how can they hear if someone hasn't preached? And how can they preach unless they be sent? And so the church is meant to be a tool both to bring people to Christ and to spread the message of Jesus Christ. So I hope that you have found something helpful in this discussion about the church. Maybe it's broadened your view a little bit to look a little deeper and think of it as more than a building or a structure or an institution, and instead think of it as a living organism, a living body, a spiritual entity. So until next time, this is Andrew King, your fellow brother and companion in this journey we call life.
Proclaim the glory of the Lord. Let every